Lieutenant James Carter never expected peace to feel so quiet. The great star cruiser Celestara glided through the deep silver of space, her hull glowing faint blue under the twin suns of the Arendari system. Carter stood near a tall viewing glass, hands resting behind his back, looking at the endless stars. For the first time since leaving Earth, he felt small, but not afraid, only full of wonder. Humanity had waited a long time for this moment. After years of silence and cautious scanning, the Arendari had invited Earth to send a delegation. The Arendari were one of the oldest known civilizations, elegant, advanced, and mysterious. They had the kind of technology humans still called magic. Carter had trained for months to understand their customs, but nothing could prepare him for meeting them. Face dash to dash face. The ship's air was cool and scented with something like rain. Light passed through glass floors, painting long lines across his uniform. Everything about the Celestara looked alive, as if the ship itself was breathing. Carter could see his reflection faintly in the glass, the only human in sight, wearing the dark blue of the Earth Alliance. His pulse quickened. Then he saw her. Princess Vayara, the daughter of the Arendari queen, stood at the far edge of the deck. She was taller than most humans, her form graceful, her blue-silver skin softly catching the starlight. Her long ribbon-like hair flowed down her back, changing color with the light, sometimes silver, sometimes violet. Her robe shimmered like water as she gazed through the panoramic window. Carter froze. He had seen pictures of her before, every human delegate had. The princess was known for her intelligence and her curiosity about new worlds. But the real sight of her made his heart skip. She looked almost human in shape. But her presence carried something deeper, like music that couldn't be heard, only felt. He didn't mean to stare. He only wanted to understand the details, the pattern of her robe, a crown of crystal leaves on her head, the way the color in her hair shifted like the ocean tide. But then she turned suddenly, her bright silver eyes meeting his. Carter looked away at once, embarrassed. He cleared his throat, pretending to check the readings on his datapad, though it was already off. He hoped she hadn't noticed. But her soft voice cut through the silence. "Why do you keep staring at my butt, human?" Carter froze. The datapad almost slipped from his hand. He turned slowly, unsure if he had heard correctly. Her face was calm, her tone neither angry nor shy, only curious. Almost amused. That's not what I meant to do," he stammered. His cheeks burned. Her eyes sparkled, and for the first time he saw her lips curve into what might have been a smile. "You humans," she said with gentle amusement. "You look so directly. It's strange, but honest." Carter blinked. "I didn't mean any disrespect, Your Highness." "I know," she replied softly. "If you had, the guards would already be here." His heart skipped again. He couldn't tell if she was joking. Then she laughed, a sound like chimes in a soft wind, and his nerves began to calm. Her laughter echoed through the vast room, and for a moment, even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. The princess stepped closer, movements smooth and balanced as if she floated rather than walked. "You are Lieutenant Carter, yes? From Earth?" He nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Highness." "Part of the diplomatic team?" "I have read about your species," she said. "You are very new to the stars, but full of courage. My mother says you still have more questions than answers." Carter gave a small smile. "That sounds about right," Vayara said, tilting her head slightly. "Questions are how civilizations grow." She looked back out the window, her expression soft. "Do you find our world beautiful, Lieutenant?" "Yes," he said honestly. "It's more than beautiful. It feels alive." Her hair shimmered faintly violet, the Arendari color for amusement. "You see feelings in places?" she said quietly. "That's what I like about humans. You always describe what you feel, even when you don't mean to." Carter didn't know what to say. He only stood beside her, the glass before them stretching into infinity. The twin suns were beginning to set over the planet below, turning the clouds gold and green dot. After a long pause, she asked, "Tell me something, human. On your world, when someone looks at another so intently, what does it mean?" Carter hesitated. Sometimes it means curiosity. Sometimes respect. Sometimes it just means we're trying to understand what we see. And what did you see in me? She asked simply. Her tone carried no pride, only a quiet interest. The same kind she might use to study a new flower. Carter took a breath. I saw someone, real. Someone I couldn't compare to anything on Earth. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the princess gave a faint smile, her eyes bright. A very human answer, she said. Honest, direct, and confusing. They both laughed softly. Awkwardly, but the tension melted away. Hours later, when the human delegation gathered for the welcome feast, whispers already ran through the Arindari court. Some of the nobles had seen the princess talking to the human lieutenant alone, something rarely done. A few considered it bold. Others, improper. But Viara didn't seem to care. As the celebration began, Carter watched her from across the grand hall. The walls shone with soft light, and transparent pillars carried flowing patterns like living rivers. The Arindari music was deep and slow, more felt than heard. The princess sat beside her mother, the queen, who radiated authority with quiet grace. At one point, Viara's gaze met Carter's again. For the briefest instant, her hair flickered violet. He looked away, pretending to adjust his sleeve, but his heart was racing again. The other delegates spoke about treaties and technology exchanges. But Carter's thoughts were somewhere else, back on the observation deck, on that strange question that still echoed in his head. Why did you keep staring? He had no real answer except that he couldn't help it. She wasn't just another alien dignitary. There was something profoundly human about her curiosity, her warmth, her laughter. Later that night, when the meeting ended, Carter walked alone through the quiet corridors. The halls were lined with crystal panels that responded to motion, glowing faintly under his steps. He stopped at a viewing window again, watching Arindar spin slowly below. He thought about how humanity had come so far, from wooden ships on oceans to vessels crossing galaxies, and yet, even here, among the stars, people still made the same mistakes, saying the wrong words, being misunderstood, feeling shy and small in front of beauty. He smiled to himself. Maybe that was what made humans worth noticing. A soft chime broke his thoughts. He turned and saw a figure standing in the doorway. Princess Viara. Still looking at the stars? She asked, her voice gentle. He straightened. They're hard to ignore. She stepped closer, her robe whispering against the floor. I came to see if you were still embarrassed. He blinked. Embarrassed. She smiled. From before? The observation deck. Carter chuckled nervously. I think that's going to follow me forever, isn't it? Maybe, she said with amusement, but I did not take offense. In truth, I found it. Fascinating, fascinating. Yes, she said softly. Among my people, we rarely look at one another for long. It is considered intrusive, but humans do it without fear. You observe openly, like explorers, even in conversation. It shows courage and honesty. Carter tilted his head. So you don't think I was being rude? She shook her head slowly. No, you were being human. They stood quietly, the hum of the ship surrounding them. Through the glass, Arindar's rings glowed faintly blue. May I ask you something, Princess? Carter said after a moment. You may. When you changed color earlier, your hair, what did that mean? She touched a strand, watching it shift between violet and silver. It shows emotion. Violet is for amusement. Silver is calm. Blue is focus. It is how we express without words. Incredible, he said. Humans could use something like that. Would make diplomacy easier, or harder, she said with a small smile. No lies could hide. They both laughed quietly. For a long time, they simply watched the planet spin. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful, like two travelers resting under the same stars. Finally, Viara spoke again. Tomorrow, we begin the formal talks. You will represent your species well, Lieutenant. I can sense that. I'll do my best, he said sincerely. She nodded. And perhaps one day, you'll tell me what it truly means when a human stares at someone like that." He smiled, unsure what to answer. "Maybe I'll learn to explain it by then." Viara looked at him for a moment longer, then turned to leave. As she walked away, her hair glowed a gentle shade of violet again. When the doors closed behind her, Carter exhaled slowly. The strange encounter replayed in his mind, the teasing question, the laughter, the way she seemed to see straight through him. He didn't know what tomorrow's negotiations would bring. But he was certain of one thing. This mission was no longer just about politics or trade. Something had begun on that deck, something that might change more than treaties. He looked once more at the twin suns beyond the ship's hull and whispered softly to himself, "What just happened, James?" But somewhere deep inside he already knew. Morning aboard the Celestara began with a gentle hum. The corridors filled with soft light that followed the rhythm of the ship's artificial dawn. Lieutenant James Carter stood in front of the mirror inside his quarters, adjusting his uniform collar. Today was the first day of official negotiations between Earth and the Arendari Empire, and he knew every glance. Every word, every tone could shape the future between their worlds. But as he looked at his reflection, he wasn't thinking about diplomacy. He was thinking about Princess Viara. Her laughter still echoed faintly in his mind. The way her hair had shimmered violet when she smiled. The way she spoke, calm, curious, never judging. He hadn't met many aliens before, but she had something rare, warmth. He told himself to stay focused. Emotions had no place in high-level talks. Still, something deep inside him knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary mission. The communicator on his wrist beeped. "Lieutenant Carter, report to Hall 7, came Commander Lin's voice. "The Queen's Council is waiting." Carter straightened, took a deep breath, and stepped out. The royal hall of the Celestara looked like a living cathedral of glass and light. The walls pulsed with faint energy, and the floor reflected the glow of the twin suns. The Arendari sat on high seats shaped like petals, arranged in a circle. Their eyes gleamed with color, blues, silvers, and golds, as they studied the human representatives at the center. The Queen of Arendar sat on her crystal throne, her crown shining with threads of energy. Princess Viara sat beside her, her expression calm but watchful. Carter followed the rest of the Earth. Teeman took his place behind Commander Lin. The Queen began to speak. Her voice strong but melodic, her words flowing like water. Through the translator, Carter heard her greeting. "We welcome the children of Earth to the home of the Arendari. Let this meeting not be of power, but of understanding." Commander Lin bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, Earth is honored to stand before you." The first few hours went smoothly. The two sides discussed trade, technology, and shared exploration rights. Carter stayed quiet, taking notes, analyzing every gesture. The Arendari were formal but fair, until one moment changed everything. It began when one of the human delegates, an older diplomat named Strauss, attempted to make a light-hearted comment about cultural differences. He smiled and said, "You Arendari sure have a graceful way of walking. Must make the fashion industry on your planet quite the spectacle." Translator repeated his words in Arendari. A pause filled the room. Then quiet murmurs began among the nobles. Their hair flickered green, the color of discomfort. Carter immediately sensed trouble. In Arendari culture, any remark about physical traits could be seen as deeply personal, even invasive. Princess Viara's hair shimmered pale blue, a warning shade. Carter stepped forward quickly and whispered to Strauss, "Sir, that sounded like a compliment to us. But to them, it's not polite. You might want to clarify." Before Strauss could respond, one of the Arendari advisors rose sharply. "Do humans find our forms amusing?" he demanded. "Is this how you treat your allies, with mockery?" The tension in the room thickened. The Queen raised her hand for silence, but whispers spread like sparks. Carter felt his stomach twist. Viara stood slowly. "Please," she said softly. The human did not intend offense. Their language does not always separate curiosity from comment. The advisor bowed stiffly, but his eyes stayed cold. Still, It shows how little they understand us. The Queen's gaze shifted to Carter. Lieutenant, she said, you seem aware of this misunderstanding. Explain it. Carter's voice remained steady. Your Majesty, humans often use humor to express interest or appreciation. We mean no disrespect. Sometimes we speak too freely, but not unkindly. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Very well, but let this be a lesson. Honesty must walk beside wisdom. The tension faded slightly, but not completely. Carter caught Vayara's eye. She gave him a small, grateful nod. After the meeting, Carter stayed behind in the hall, reviewing his notes. He heard soft footsteps behind him and turned to see Vayara approaching. You handled that well, he said. I just didn't want anyone thinking we came here to insult your people. Carter replied. She tilted her head. You speak with care, but your eyes still show worry. He chuckled. Guess I can't hide much from you. You humans wear your hearts on your faces, she said gently. It's refreshing. They began walking down a corridor lined with luminous trees grown inside the ship. The atmosphere felt calmer there. No advisors, no cameras. Only the quiet hum of energy through the walls. Do all humans speak as freely as you do? Vayara asked. Not all, he said with a smile. Some talk too much, some not enough. But we try to mean what we say. I think that's why I enjoy speaking with you, she admitted. You don't hide behind ritual. Her words caught him off guard. Most people here think I talk too much. Then perhaps you were speaking to the wrong people, she said softly. For a moment, their steps slowed. He looked at her and noticed how the color in her hair had softened to silver calmness. He didn't know if it was friendship, curiosity, something deeper that connected them, but it felt real. They reached a large crystal window overlooking the planet. Vayara touched the glass with her palm, and a small field of light expanded, showing magnified views of Arender's surface, forests of blue crystal, silver oceans, and great floating cities. It's beautiful, Carter said quietly. Vayara nodded. It is, but sometimes beauty hides distance. You see the light, but not the space between it. He frowned slightly. You mean like misunderstandings? Yes, she said. Words can travel light years and still arrive broken. Carter smiled faintly. Then I guess our job is to fix them. She looked at him thoughtfully. Maybe that's why you are here, Lieutenant. Not just for peace, but for connection. Before he could reply, a chime echoed through the corridor, a signal from the command deck. Vayara's expression changed. Something's wrong, she said, her voice sharper now. Minutes later, they reached the communications chamber. Screens displayed a storm of energy readings. A human cargo ship orbiting Arendar had accidentally crossed into a restricted zone near one of the Empire's ancient defense satellites. An Arendar officer spoke quickly to the Queen. The human vessel's signal pattern matches a weapon ping. The defense system is activated. Carter stepped forward. Wait, that's impossible. It's a misread. Human transponders sometimes loop under a Rendari frequency. But the satellite had already locked on. The entire chamber trembled as a light beam charged in orbit. Deactivate it. Vayara called. That ship holds civilians. The Queen hesitated. The Defense Corps reacts to threat code, not command. It will not listen. Carter's communicator buzzed. Lieutenant, the ship's systems are fried. We can't move, shouted the human captain over the channel. Without thinking, Carter turned to Vayara. We can jam the targeting feed. I studied your wave arrays. Ayara's eyes widened. You would risk interference? It could trigger a cascade through the ship's network. I'd rather risk a network than lives. She looked at him for a heartbeat, then nodded. Follow me. They sprinted down the corridor to a glowing chamber filled with floating data crystals. Vayara touched the main console, her hands moving in arcs of light. Carter scanned the patterns, his mind racing. Your defense system uses harmonic frequencies, right? If we match it with a reverse pulse, it will blind the satellite temporarily, she finished. Exactly. Together, they calibrated the pulse. The ship shuddered as alarms flared. Outside, a beam of light began to form in the upper atmosphere, the satellite preparing to fire. Now, Carter shouted. VARA struck the panel. The chamber filled with a shock of light. For a moment, the power dimmed across the Celestara. Then silence. On the monitor, the beam dispersed harmlessly into space. The human cargo ship drifted free, its systems safe. Cheers erupted from both crews. Viara exhaled slowly, her hair glowing bright silver. "You did it," Carter smiled. "We did it." The Queen entered moments later, her face a mix of surprise and pride. "You risked much, Lieutenant. You interfered with an ancient core that even our engineers fear to touch." "With respect, Your Majesty," Carter said, "I wasn't thinking about the machine. I was thinking about the people." The Queen studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "Perhaps that is what makes humans different." That night, when the halls quieted and the stars drifted across the viewing glass, Vayara found Carter again near the observation deck. "Today could have ended in disaster," she said softly. "But it didn't," he replied. "Sometimes good intentions are stronger than old systems." She smiled faintly. "You speak as though emotions can rewrite logic." "Maybe they can," he said with a grin. "At least they did today." She turned to him, eyes reflecting the stars. "There is something about you humans I am still trying to understand." "What's that?" "You make mistakes, cause trouble, ignore warnings, yet you still find a way to protect what you care about. You risk yourselves for people you barely know." "Why?" He thought for a moment. "Because we remember what it's like to be small. And when you know what that feels like, you don't want anyone else to feel it." Her expression softened. "That is beautiful." They stood there, silent stretching between them, filled only by the hum of the ship. Vayara's voice lowered. "You changed something today, Lieutenant." "Not?" The hum of the Celestara's engines filled the corridors as Lieutenant James Carter walked toward the command deck. His mind was heavy with the events of the previous day. The misunderstanding with the Arendari advisors had been resolved, thanks to his quick thinking and Princess Vayara's courage. Yet, despite the success, he could feel the delicate thread of diplomacy stretched tighter than ever. His footsteps echoed in the crystal-lined hall. The corridors, normally quiet and serene, now felt almost oppressive. Every panel shimmered under the soft lights, reminding him that this was not Earth. This was alien territory, and he had to be careful. Every action, every word, could ripple into consequences he could not predict. And yet thoughts of Vayara remained with him. Her laughter, her silver eyes, the way her hair shifted colors when she felt emotions. He had tried to focus on duty, but he realized something unsettling. He wanted to see her again. Not as a delegate, not as a diplomat, but as a person. The day's formal meeting had begun with cautious smiles and carefully measured words. Carter sat beside Commander Lin, listening as the Arendari leaders discussed trade routes, energy-sharing protocols, and the transfer of knowledge. Each topic was a delicate balance of trust and calculation. Carter noted every nuance, every glance, every shift in hair color. Princess Vayara observed from her seat beside the Queen, her gaze often finding him across the hall. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he could feel it. Every flicker of violet in her hair sent a small thrill through him. At the midpoint of the meeting, the Queen raised her hand, calling for a pause. "There is a matter that requires immediate attention," she said. "A fleet of research vessels has detected anomalies near the outer rings of the Arendari system. We must act swiftly." Carter leaned forward. "Anomalies?" He asked, "What kind?" "Unstable energy signatures," an Arendari officer explained. "It could be natural, or it could be deliberate. The fleet must investigate. We cannot risk interference without preparation," the room murmured. Carter felt a surge of responsibility. He knew that humans could help, but any misstep might escalate into a crisis. After the discussion, the delegation was dismissed, and Carter made his way to the observation deck. He needed to think, to prepare for the fleet's briefing. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting golden light across the alien surface below. He found Vayara already there. Standing near the edge of the glass, her hair a calm silver, she did not turn at first. When she did, her eyes met his. and he felt a strange mixture of relief and anticipation. "You're here early," he said, forcing a smile. "I thought you might need guidance," she replied softly. "The human fleet is unfamiliar with our systems. You must be careful." "I appreciate it," he said, glancing down at the distant rings. "But I know your people better than I realize. And you help more than anyone else here." Oh. Her hair flickered faint violet, a sign of amusement. "You flatter too easily, Lieutenant, but I do not mind. It is easier to see truth in those who do not hide behind words." They stood in silence, watching the rings spin slowly. The planets and moons below reflected sunlight in gentle streaks. Carter could hear the faint hum of energy fields and the soft whistle of the wind simulators in the deck. Finally, he spoke. "Princess, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course," she replied, her voice calm but curious. "When you look at humans at me, what do you feel? Curiosity? Amusement? Something more?" Her eyes softened, her hair briefly turning violet before settling into a pale silver. "All of those," she admitted, "and yet, it is difficult to describe. Humans feel with such directness. You wear emotions like armor, and yet you reveal them without fear. It is strange and intriguing." Carter smiled faintly. "I think that's why I'm drawn to you." She studied him carefully. "You are honest, Lieutenant. Perhaps too honest. But that honesty may be the reason you survived the first impression of my people." "I survived?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Her lips curved into a small smile. "The observation deck. Your gaze was noticed. Many humans would have been questioned, reprimanded, or even escorted away. But you stood your ground without fear." "That is rare," Carter chuckled nervously. "I didn't realize I was being bold. I was just curious." "It's that curiosity," she said softly, "may save more than one life in the days to come." Hours later, Carter received an urgent summons from Commander Lin. The fleet briefing was set to begin, and the anomalies in the outer rings were growing unstable. Carter entered the command deck, his heart racing, and found the room buzzing with tension. Officers from both human and Arindari fleets crowded the holographic displays, showing energy spikes and unpredictable fluctuations. "Lieutenant Carter," Commander Lin said, "you will coordinate with the Arindari analysts. This is delicate work. One mistake in the anomaly could escalate into a catastrophic chain reaction." Carter nodded. "Understood, Commander." Vayar appeared at the edge of the room, her hair flickering blue. "Focus." She approached him quietly. "Lieutenant, I will assist you. We must stabilize the readings before the outer ships are affected." Together, they moved to the main console, their hands sometimes brushing as they worked. Carter felt a strange warmth whenever their fingers nearly touched. He tried to focus, to keep his mind on the task. But the rhythm of her presence beside him was distracting, comforting, yet dangerous. The readings on the hologram showed a cluster of energy surges forming in the outer rings. Carter traced the patterns with his fingers. "These surges, they're not natural," he said. "The frequency shifts too quickly for cosmic events. Someone or something is manipulating them." "A deliberate force," she agreed. "Perhaps a probe or weapon. But who would risk detection so openly?" The two worked in silence, analyzing every pulse and fluctuation. Hours passed as the anomaly pulsed and shifted. Carter's mind raced, but he felt Vera's calm beside him, guiding his thoughts. He realized that despite the danger, he had never felt more alive. "Lieutenant," she said finally, her voice low, "I trust your judgment. You must decide, do we stabilize the anomaly from here, or send a team to intercept?" Carter considered. "We stabilize from here. Sending a team now risks too much. But we can create a counter-frequency pulse to neutralize the energy waves." Vayara's hair glowed violet briefly. "You are brave, human. Very well, I will help you." They began the delicate work of calibrating the counter-frequency. Each adjustment was critical. Carter's hands moved quickly, coordinating with Vayara's precise touches. They spoke in short, efficient sentences, but every glance carried unspoken understanding. Suddenly an alarm blared. One of the readings spiked violently. "The core is unstable," shouted an officer. Carter's heart jumped. "We must act now," he shouted. "Adjust the phase modulator to 12.4, double the amplitude, and feed the wave into the primary stabilization grid." Vayara's hands moved in a blur, her calm energy steadying the system. The room trembled as the ship's shields pulsed to absorb the energy surges. Light flared across the holograms. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the spikes began to smooth, the anomaly dissipating. A collective sigh of relief filled the room. "You did it," Vayara whispered, her eyes shining with admiration. "We did it," Carter corrected. Smiling, the Queen appeared at the entrance, her expression unreadable. "Lieutenant Carter, Princess Vayara," she said slowly, "you risked much. Yet your actions preserved not only the fleet, but the trust between our peoples. I commend you." Carter bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only acted to protect life." Vayara smiled at him, her hair settling into calm silver. "You see, Lieutenant, courage and honesty can speak louder than any order." Later, after the crisis passed, Carter returned to the observation deck. He needed a moment of solitude to process the day's events. The twin suns had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. He stared at the rings spinning below, the faint glow of the fleet reflecting in the glass. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Vayara stood there, her hands folded in front of her, her expression gentle but serious. "You should not be alone," she said. "After today, the Council may wish to recall you to the delegation ship. They may not understand the bond we have formed here." Carter frowned. "Bond." She stepped closer. "The connection we share. It is not just friendship. The way you think, the way you act, humans and Arindari rarely align in purpose. But you understand me? Perhaps more than any Arindari ever could." He swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say."
"Then do nothing,"
she replied softly. "Just know that the choices you make tomorrow will carry weight beyond our own worlds." Her hand brushed against the glass. Carter noticed the subtle color shift in her hair, violet for thought, silver for calm. The complexity of her emotions was overwhelming, yet comforting. "I will not fail," he said quietly. "Not here. Not while you trust me." Vayara gave a faint nod. "Then meet me here tomorrow. Before the council convenes, there is something I must show you, a matter too sensitive for the court." Carter's pulse quickened. "I'll be here." She left. He felt a strange mixture of anticipation and fear. The next day would bring decisions that could change the future of both species. But for now, he allowed himself a rare moment of hope, a hope tied to the morning light spread through the halls of the Celestara, quiet and golden. Lieutenant James Carter stood by his cabin window, watching the twin suns rise above Arinder's clouds. He had slept little. His thoughts kept circling around one thing: Princess Vayara's message. "Meet me before the council convenes." He dressed carefully, straightening his uniform. Every movement felt heavier than usual, like he was preparing for something he could not name. The ship felt different today, too still, as if waiting for something important. When he stepped into the corridor, guards moved silently past him. The air shimmered faintly, carrying the scent of metal and soft rain. As he approached the observation deck, he found her waiting, standing near the great glass wall where they had first met. Her hair glowed pale silver in the morning light. She turned as he entered, a small, knowing smile touching her lips. "You came," she said softly. "Of course," he replied. "You asked me to." Vayara stepped closer, her voice low. "The council will meet within the hour. They plan to discuss the human fleet's presence. Some of them believe our alliance is moving too quickly." Carter frowned. "Too quickly? After everything we did to save the system?" She nodded. "Fear does not vanish easily, Lieutenant. Some believe humans act from impulse, not reason. They think your courage hides danger." He sighed. "Then maybe I'm not helping by being here." Vayara's eyes softened. "You helped more than you realize. But the council fears what it cannot control. And what it cannot explain? She hesitated, then stepped closer. There is one more matter, something I did not tell you before. The anomaly we stabilized. It was not natural. Carter's pulse quickened. You mean it was caused? Yes, she said. Someone outside both our fleets sent a coded pulse, a test. My analysts traced fragments of an older pattern, one used by the Dominion of Harwin, a rival empire. They wanted to see how far we would go to protect each other. He stared at her. So it was a trap. No. She nodded, and we passed. But the Council does not see it that way. They fear the Dominion's reaction. They fear that standing beside humanity will bring war. Carter clenched his fists. So what happens now? They will vote, she said quietly. If they decide against the treaty, your delegation will be sent home within the day. A cold silence filled the deck. Outside, the twin suns climbed higher, painting the ship's hull in light. Carter looked at her, searching her face. And you? What will you do if they end it? Vayara's voice softened. I will speak. But my voice alone may not be enough. She turned to the window. That is why I asked you here. There is something I must give you, a record of what truly happened during the anomaly. It will prove that your people acted with honor. Take this to your commander if the worst happens. Promise me you will protect the truth. Carter accepted it carefully. I promise. Their hands brushed, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to slow. He could see the faint shimmer of violet spreading through. Her hair emotion she didn't try to hide this time. Wish we had more time, she whispered. So, do I, he said. The council chamber filled with light and tension. The queen sat upon her throne, surrounded by advisors and nobles. The human delegation stood across from them, their faces calm but alert. Carter stood slightly behind Commander Lin, holding the small datasphere hidden within his sleeve. The queen began the session. We gather to decide the future of this alliance, she declared. Speak your truths. One advisor rose immediately. Your Majesty, we have seen bravery from the humans, yes, but also recklessness. Their interference in our defense systems could have destroyed the fleet. Another followed. Their technology is unstable. Their emotions control their actions. We cannot entrust them with access to our worlds. The murmurs grew louder. Carter's jaw tightened. Every word felt like a wall rising between their species. Then, unexpectedly, Vayara stood. The entire room fell silent. My queen, she said, if I may speak. The queen nodded. You may. Vayara stepped forward, her robes shimmering softly in the chamber light. You call the humans reckless. Yet their courage saved thousands of our people when our own systems failed. You call them impulsive, but it was their quick thinking that prevented war with the Dominion. I saw it with my own eyes. Lieutenant Carter risked his life, not for glory, but for trust. Whispers spread again. One noble stood. Princess, your compassion blinds you. This human charmed you into believing he speaks for all his kind. Vayara turned her silver gaze toward him. No, she said firmly. He reminded me what it means to feel, to see without fear. The chamber fell silent again. Carter's heart pounded. He wanted to speak, but protocol bound him to silence. He could only watch as the princess defended not just him, but his entire world. Another advisor spoke coldly. Your Highness, emotions are dangerous. They weaken reason. Vayara's hair flared pale blue, the color of conviction. Then perhaps we have been too reasonable for too long, she said. Perhaps it is time we remember that peace is not born from distance, but from understanding. The queen studied her daughter quietly, eyes deep and unreadable. The hall remained still for several long moments. Then the queen said, Lieutenant Carter, step forward. Carter hesitated, then obeyed. Walking to the center of the chamber. Is it true, the queen asked, that you risked the core of this ship to save both fleets? Yes, your Majesty, he said simply. Because saving lives mattered more than protocols. Would you do it again, she asked, knowing the danger? He met her eyes. Without hesitation, the queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said, And what have you learned of my people, human? Carter took a breath. That they are wiser than we imagined. But also that they feel more deeply than they show. I've learned that peace isn't built by documents or signatures. It's built when two people from different worlds choose to trust each other even when they shouldn't have to. A murmur rippled through the court. Veyara's eyes glistened faintly. The queen leaned back, studying him. Then she rose, her presence commanding the room. "We have heard enough," she said. "Let the council decide." Minutes stretched into an eternity. The delegates waited in silence as energy crystals recorded each council member's vote. The tension in the air felt electric, alive. Carter could hear the faint hum of his own heartbeat. Finally, the queen looked down at the results displayed before her. She stood tall. "By the voice of this council and by the light of Arendar, we have decided to uphold the treaty with Earth." A wave of gasps and murmurs swept through the room. The queen raised her hand. "But let this be known. This alliance stands not because of politics, but because one human reminded us that courage still has a place among the stars." Vera's eyes met Carter's. For a brief moment, the rest of the room vanished. Later that evening, the celebration filled the ship with soft music and golden light. The humans and Irundari mingled more freely now, their earlier caution replaced with quiet smiles and curiosity. Carter found himself standing alone on the observation deck again. Watching the twin suns set, he heard soft footsteps behind him. "You did it," Veyara said, her voice warm. "No," he said, turning toward her. "We did." She smiled, stepping beside him. "Perhaps. But it was your words that moved them." "My mother does not praise lightly." Carter laughed softly. "I noticed." For a while, they stood in silence, watching the stars brighten one by one. Finally, Veyara spoke again. "Tomorrow you will return to Earth." He nodded. "That's the plan. Do you wish to?" she asked quietly. He looked at her. "Duty says yes. Heart says no." Her hair shimmered violet at his words, amusement mixed with something deeper. "You humans always speak of hearts. We speak of resonance, the harmony between minds. Perhaps they are not so different," he smiled. "Maybe that's what this whole alliance is, learning how our hearts and your resonance can meet halfway." Veyara turned toward him fully, the light of the stars reflected in her eyes. "Then, let this be the first step," she said. She raised her hand, palm outward, an ancient Arendari gesture of trust. "Among my people, this sign is only shared between equals. It binds two paths together in promise." Carter hesitated only for a moment before placing his hand against hers. The surface of her skin was cool and smooth, but he felt a warmth flow through the touch, a soft pulse that resonated like music. The glass before them reflected two silhouettes, a human and an alien princess. Standing side by side as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Vera's voice was gentle. "When the stars remember us, Lieutenant Carter, let them say this that once. Two souls from different worlds looked at each other and chose to understand." He smiled, his throat tight. "Then I hope the stars have good memories." She laughed softly. "They never forget." Lights around them dimmed as the Celestara prepared for night mode. Far below, Arendar's cities shimmered like rivers of silver. Carter looked once more at the planet that had changed everything. "I'll come back," he said quietly. "I know," Veyara replied. "Humans always return to what calls their hearts." As he turned to leave, she called after him, her voice carrying through the still air. "And, Carter," he stopped, glancing back. Veyara's hair flickered bright violet. "Next time you stare," she said with a smile, "try not to make the council talk for a week." Carter laughed softly, shaking his head. "No promises, princess."